Ahead of the international break, France national team manager Didier Deschamps admitted that star midfielder Paul Pogba is not happy with his current situation at Man United. He's in a situation with his club where he cannot be happy, neither with his playing time nor with his positioning, Deschamps said. He's not in his best period. He's had a series of injuries and the infection, which has hit him quite hard. He needs to find his rhythm. Deschamps went on to say that Pogba would welcome the international break since he'll get a chance to play for France. The dynamic midfielder started the team's Champions League defeat at the hands of Istanbul Başakşehir from the bench and was again on the bench as Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's men defeated Everton 3-1 at Goodison Park. It appears that the United manager has found the right formula to get the best out of his players, with Fred playing alongside Scott McTominay and Bruno Fernandes given more freedom to play close to the likes of Marcus Rashford and Anthony Martial. However, this was never supposed to go on like this because Solskjaer had always been Pogba's staunchest supporter at the club, even when the player and his agent Mino Raiola conspired to engineer a move away from Old Trafford in the summer of 2019. Even when the club signed Donny van der Beek, it appeared that the young Dutchman was only ever a signing for the future. However, every time he's been given the chance, the young midfielder has shown that he can definitely cut it in the Premier League. Fred's future was up in the air, but the Brazilian midfielder has worked his way back into the starting 11 by sheer hard work and dedication. Even though there are still a few issues in the midfielder's overall gameplay, the Norwegian tactician is willing to give him ample opportunities, and now Fred has started becoming more consistent. Bruno Fernandes arrived at the club in January, and from the get-go, the Portugal international has become an integral member of the starting 11. The talented midfielder knows what it means to be a Manchester United player, and his arrival was the main reason why the Red Devils ended up finishing last season in third place in the league standings. This season he's continued from where he left off, and is working really hard for the team's cause. The way United have been set up, there's room for only one midfielder whose erratic ways of playing can be accommodated. If truth be told, both Fernandes and Pogba lack the discipline to become deep-lying playmakers. Fernandes tries to go for extravagant passes quite a lot, which is why he does end up making a lot of misplaced passes. However, Fernandes' problems with losing possession due to his expansive passing instincts can be forgiven, because the Portugal international does give the team a more creative outlet. He can score goals and provide a lot of assists, just like Kevin De Bruyne, who can make a few misplaced passes. Fernandes is a great creator, so it would never make any sense to drop him. Paul Pogba, on the other hand, seems to be a little bit too lethargic at times, and the manner in which he can lose possession or go for a mindless tackle can be really infuriating. For instance, during the game against Arsenal with the game still scoreless, the France international tackled Hector Bellerin when the Gunners' fullback was not even in the area of the penalty box where he could have created a goal-scoring opportunity. This is something you don't expect from a player like Pogba, yet here we are. Despite his talent, of which there is no doubt, Pogba is far too inconsistent and doesn't influence games like a player of his stature should. A few days ago, Jamie Carragher pointed out that Manchester United can't afford to have both Pogba and Fernandes in the same team because of their indisciplined playing style. The former Liverpool defender believes that it's time for Man United to cash in on a player who's been more of a disappointment than anything ever since he returned to Old Trafford after impressing in Italy with Juventus. During his second spell at Old Trafford, Paul Pogba has played under two different managers. He was brought back to the club when Jose Mourinho was in charge, and after a good first season where, alongside Zlatan Ibrahimovic, the club won the Europa League and secured a place in the Champions League, the France international has struggled with form and consistency. For every good display, there have been regular games where he's been anonymous at best. No matter what position he plays in or what sort of tactical setup a manager opts for, Pogba has never shown enough consistency. Indeed, when he first arrived at Old Trafford for a club record fee, it was thought that Paul Pogba would become an all-conquering midfielder who would dominate the Premier League and Europe and finally guide Man United to Premier League and Champions League success. However, nothing of the sort has happened, and the way the 27-year-old has started the new Premier League campaign clearly shows that he's never going to realise his true potential while at Man United. But you can't blame Pogba alone for the issues he's had. The club is to be blamed in equal measure. At Juventus, he was never expected to be a shackled midfielder. Both Antonio Conte and the club's management realised that they would never be able to get the best out of the Frenchman if they forced him to focus on attributes that don't go well with his overall gameplay. With Andrea Pirlo operating as a regista or deep-lying playmaker and Arturo Vidal being the box-to-box defensive midfielder, Paul Pogba was given freedom to play higher up the pitch with those sudden bursts of pace and fine dribbling, making him a terrifying prospect for Serie A defences. During an interview on Drive Time, Carragher compared Pogba's performances to those of Frank Lampard, Steven Gerrard and Yaya Toure and said that the 27-year-old simply doesn't do enough. People say he's won the World Cup and I get that, but when he came in, I thought he might have the impact like Frank Lampard at Chelsea, Steven Gerrard at Liverpool, Yaya Toure at Man City. Those players drove their team to titles, European Cups. And while the former defender does make a few valid arguments here, upon deeper inspection we can see that Pogba was never given the sort of tactical freedom all those players were given. Lampard, for instance, was not expected to be worried about the defensive structure of the team, thanks to the presence of Claude Makelele, who's perhaps the greatest defensive midfielder of all time. Similarly, Steven Gerrard had enough support behind him which allowed him to increase his output at Liverpool. Yaya Toure was a player similar in profile to Pogba, but the Ivorian giant was rarely worried about helping out the defence because he had Fernandinho behind him, with the Brazilian making sure that the dynamic midfielder had enough freedom to make driving runs into the opposition territory. So one must wonder if Paul Pogba was ever afforded that freedom. Indeed, upon his arrival, the Frenchman was expected to play in a much deeper role and was even required to position himself in front of defence. This was never his best position, and so it was natural to see him struggle, and we saw the midfielder continue falling back towards his natural instinct as an enterprising midfielder. During his Juventus playing days, Pogba was positioned on the left side of midfield, which was perhaps his best position. At United, he was never given that role on a regular basis, and now with Bruno Fernandes at Old Trafford and doing so well, we don't expect to see Pogba being given the creative freedom to get back to his best. In hindsight, Man United should have signed a capable defensive midfielder when they brought back Pogba. Apart from the club's inability to sign a defensive midfielder right away, injuries have also impacted Paul Pogba's game. Ever since he guided France to their second ever World Cup title, the midfielder has faced a lot of injury worries. Every time he makes a comeback, he ends up getting injured. What this does to any player is that they simply fail to find their rhythm. While not many fans would agree to it, in order to get back to your best, you need to play enough games without any injury worries. This, unfortunately, hasn't happened with Pogba. But now that he's fit and slowly getting enough chances from the bench, there is still hope that Pogba will find his feet again. But would that happen? Based on his erratic showings, we can never say for sure. This is why it wouldn't be surprising if the players moved on in the transfer market next summer. While seeing him leave would be a disappointing scenario, perhaps it's the right thing to do for all parties. Pogba's body language doesn't seem to suggest that his heart is at Man United. He's already said that it would be a dream to play for Real Madrid one day, and with Zinedine Zidane still reportedly interested in signing him, who knows what happens next summer. Manchester United are not going to recoup the amount that they paid for his signature, but even if they could receive around €60 million, it would be considered a coup. The money made from his sale could boost the club's coffers, and if Ed Woodward decides to finally do something right, he'll invest the amount in a younger option. Starred René Starlet, Eduardo Camavinga is making a name for himself and has immense potential. While Real Madrid are interested in signing the young midfielder, they might still prefer to sign Pogba over him, given his experience of playing at the top. United, on the other hand, could do with a young player like Camavinga, who's already shown that he can perform at the highest levels in club football. He might not be Premier League ready, but with time, the young Frenchman might become all that United hoped Pogba would have become when they first signed him. While Pogba's career is at a crossroads, the same can be said about his club, who need to decide if they want to continue dealing with a player who, despite all the talent in the world, is too inconsistent to be expected to help return the club to the top of footballing greatness. Maybe in a few years' time, someone like Camavinga can do that. There you go, Ed Woodward. There's a great suggestion from us at Goalside. Act on it before some other club listens to us and does what's right.